The Aquest Podcast, Funds Industry Conversations.
Hello podcast listeners and welcome to this episode of the Aquest Podcast with me, Danny Lawler. If you're new to the podcast, do be sure to subscribe and don't be afraid to share it with your friends and pals as well. The topic for this podcast is SFTR and EMIR reporting. It's a bit of an alphabet soup, so let me just explain a little. SFTR is the Securities Financing Transactions Regulation, and EMIR is the European Markets Infrastructure Regulation. Both of those are European laws that came into effect post the last financial crisis, the idea being to require industry participants to submit and report data to regulators and trade repositories so that the regulators could understand better what was happening in the markets and could try and anticipate risks that might be coming down the line. So the context for the podcast is my guest is Ciaran Walshe from Fund Recs, and yesterday, we're recording late September 2022. Yesterday, Ciaran moderated a panel discussion at a webinar hosted by Fund Recs. It was also attended by yours truly and by the Central Bank of Ireland and others. So the topic was data quality and oversight of reporting under SFTR and EMIR. And myself and Ciaran chat about the aims that were there for the webinar, what we heard, particularly the messaging from the central bank, and maybe some insights into where the market is at currently and what the expectations are of where the market needs to get to. Okay, so with that intro done, let's get on with the podcast.
The Aquest Podcast, Funds Industry Conversations.
Hi, Ciaran. Welcome to the Aquest Podcast.
Cheers, Danny. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you. You're COO in Fund Recs, and for maybe anybody who doesn't know who or what Fund Recs are, you want to give us a little spiel?
So kind of in 60 seconds, we are fund accountants by trade, or recovering fund accountants, as Alan and Des like to call us. But we have reconciliation software for fund administrators, transfer agents, depositories, and do some data transformation as well. And just on the subject we'll be covering today and have covered, just regarding EMIR, we look after EMIR oversight for a number of clients across Europe, where we will take in their trade repository feeds, we'll take in their fund admin feeds, do the end-to-end reconciliation, make sure that they have all their data quality checks in place and give them their output so that they can resolve any issues and make sure that the reporting up to senior management or board level is possible.
So I guess with the product in the space of reconciliations around EMIR and EMIR reporting, it's a topic kind of close to your heart, certainly at the moment as firms are looking at it a bit closer. Big time.
We've seen an awful lot more engagement over the last probably 12 to 18 months, where firms are looking to put a more defined and more detailed framework in place for their oversight, where they probably are getting more queries in from the CBI and looking to stay on top of that in a more automated fashion.
Certainly, and the context for our chat today is obviously there was a webinar yesterday hosted by Fund Recs and also attended by the Central Bank and other industry experts, where the focus was on data quality and an oversight of reporting under both EMIR, which is the European Market Infrastructure Regulation, and SFTR, the Securities Financing Transactions Regulation, both pieces of European legislation designed to, in some part at least, require reporting on transactions to regulators for onward sending to ESMA, so that regulators can get a better sense of what's happening in the marketplace and try and identify things like a buildup of systemic risk or other issues that might be coming down the tracks, and try and get ahead and take action before they manifest into something pretty ugly. So, Ciaran, I guess yesterday's webinar, what were your hopes going into the webinar? What were you trying to achieve or get out of it?
Well, from our side, we were just trying to get a message out there, and we've worked a little bit with the central bank in terms of their expectations and give them the platform to deliver that as well to the industry. So in terms of what we did get out of it is just their focus on data quality and why it is important. So it was great to hear from them on that side of it. Great to get an understanding as to what they're using that data for and how they're overseeing it. So the fact that this EMIR reporting and the data they receive will be driving policy and change at their end means the data quality has to be top notch. And,
yes. certainly, when you think of the amount of data that they receive, both under these two pieces of legislation, and then you throw in things like AIFMD and MiFID reporting and everything else, they really do have access to huge amounts of information. If that information is in good shape, they can mold it and shape it and extract from it then to help them with their supervision. And that is what they do. I thought that was quite interesting yesterday. They were quite clear that there's a lot of eyes in the central bank and a lot of different teams that use data to help them do what they do.
Yeah, it was interesting to hear that it's not just the EMIR and SFTR supervisory teams that are looking at that, and that they are getting live information from the trade repositories, and it is being used across the board. So I think they really delivered that message so that firms have to stay on top of it, and if they're not staying on top of it, that they'll be reaching out to them and there will be supervisory action.
Yeah, and I know it's certainly, well, for want of a better word, a bit of a gripe that you hear more than occasionally around, we're collecting all of this data as an industry and we send it into the bank and we never see what happens to it. And, what's the point? Is it worthwhile? Because it's expensive in terms of time and money and energy to gather the information and submit it. So it's really interesting to hear how it's used and the value that they place on it. But only any good, as I said, if data quality is going to improve. And that was something the central bank was quite strong on yesterday.
True, and it's something else they said as well, is firms can start to use this data if they have it in the correct manner for their own risk, their internal risk processes, and start to really evolve their own internal data network for all of this information and really use it themselves as well as delivering it to the central bank.
Well, I guess that would be the ideal, really, that having put the time and effort into gathering the data, putting it in good shape for sending into the bank, that a firm could actually draw on that data itself and see what is it that it can learn about the business and about the risks in the business and the risks in the products under management that maybe they wouldn't otherwise know. So it would be really interesting to see if firms can get into that space. But I feel they have a bit to go yet. Certainly a lot of firms have a bit to go yet before they're at that.
I think so. But it's getting that proper framework in place at the start will be the key for it. And just building on that. It's like, from what the CBI had said, they are doing data quality checks on a daily basis on the full industry. So there's no reason why firms can't be doing that. But then leveraging that information to add an awful lot more value is the next step. And I think that's what we'll start to see going forward.
And so as you work with firms, Ciaran, what's your assessment of data quality issues? Like, I mean, does it get a lot of attention? Does anybody care as long as something goes in that it's, something is better than nothing, or have things moved on and there is more?
There is a lot more focus on it. And I think from our side, we've certainly seen it in the last 6 months where data quality has become even more important. I presume that's coming from the central bank querying it and having their process in place to oversee it. But the market seems to be getting on top of it a lot more. And like, in terms of seeing what our clients have, on day one, there's an awful lot of issues where they don't have the oversight, they don't have that framework in place. But as we're working with them, as they have that daily oversight, that daily reconciliation, they're tidying up this data, they're getting it into a place where it's an awful lot better. And then going forward, they have a much cleaner data set that's being delivered. So it does take a little bit of time in getting it tidy, but once that initial process takes place, they're usually in a good place then.
And just to give everybody a sense, where is it that they're drawing this data from? And is it easy to get your hands on for the firms?
So with the majority of our clients, most of their data will be coming from DTCC, but we're also receiving data from Univista and from Regis as well. We have connectivity with DTCC and Regis, where we'll get our clients' data directly into us, and then the data quality checks will happen on a daily basis. So it's ensuring that connectivity is in place is the main starting point for us.
Okay, and that's DTCC, and the others are the trade repositories. So they're the entities with whom you're filing the...
Correct. And that's where all of the data quality checks will be done. A lot of the other side of the rec, where it's the completeness and the pairing side of it, where we're ensuring that the book of records matches to the trade repository. A lot of the data points that are needed, you can't do a side-by-side matching. That's where the data quality is just on the trade repository data.
Okay. And so the side-by-side that you do, is that information coming from a fund administrator?
Typically, it will be the fund admin, yes. So you'll be looking at the trades, you'll be looking at the quantity, price, the valuation, making sure that that's consistent with what the trade repository has, making sure that the maturity dates and currency and all that side of it line up. And then once you've that in place and you're happy on that side of it, that's when we look at the data quality. And we do both a standalone data quality check where we'll just take the trade repository data, and then we'll also do the completeness check, or we can do them combined. So we've the 3 different options for our clients.
And in terms of volumes of data, I hope people are sitting comfortably. What sort of line items, how many line items are you talking about for, say, EMIR reporting?
So you could have funds that have 20, 30, 40, 50 line items. You could have funds then that have thousands. And some of our firms, our clients, you're dealing in tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of line items. And then you're dealing with over 100 data points. And then when we get to a EMIR refit, I think it goes over 200 data points that are being submitted. So it's an awful lot of data. But as I said, once the starting point is there, once the tidy up has taken place, it's usually not too bad after that, and you can start really using that data a lot more.
And I know it's a rough or a broad question, but how long would it take a firm where they are starting out in this process to get on top of data sources, and data quality, and get to a place where they can sleep a bit easier at night?
So if we're looking at a new client and say they've 20 sub-funds that are in scope, we will spend the first couple of weeks making sure we've all the connectivity and the data in place. Then the next couple of weeks, we'll get all of the recs completed, or the first pass of it. And then within 4 to 6 weeks, we'd have the data tidied up, and you'll be moving to BAU where you're in good shape.
So you're talking about 2 months or probably a bit more?
Less than 2 months if it was a kind of a medium-sized firm. Whereas if the larger Mancos, where you're dealing with hundreds of funds, it's a little bit longer, but it all depends on how quickly we can get the data. And that's usually the main item for us. If we can get the data quickly, everything else it's been done before with all the trade repositories, with all the fund admins. So we're used to those data points. It's just dealing with the volume then after that and the quality of that. And
the other kind of key area that was for discussion yesterday was around oversight. And so once you have procedures in place, actually grab this data, submit it, and then check it and check quality and reconcile it. What kind of reporting goes back to the firm? Because in most instances, it's not for example, the Manco itself that will do this. Would have delegated the reporting to the counterparty probably. But what reporting goes to the Manco and what reporting goes to the Manco's board? Let's start with what kind of reporting you see systems being able to pull out to send up to, for example, a board.
So it'd just be summary level data, number of positions, number of issues identified, number of issues resolved within that time period, and the time results. So quarter on quarter results. Are we improving? Is it getting better and better? And ensuring that there is continuous improvement. That's what you'd see kind of at the board level. Whereas more at the operational level, it'd be line by line. So typically we'll have a match or a break, and this will either include or exclude a data quality issue. So you have different statuses that we'll feed back. So if it is just data quality our clients are looking at, they will get one report with all their data quality issues. They can then divide that into different asset types, different sub-investment managers, different counterparties, all that side of it. So you have all that information on one report, and you can look to start tidying that. So you can go to the lowest level if needed. My sense is that
Mancos, these days at least, are pretty good at oversight of certain matters. So they're generally pretty good when it comes to portfolio management and risk management. Certainly a lot more sophisticated, a lot more in the weeds than they would have been a little while ago. I think on the EMIR and SFTO reporting, I think there's a bit to go from what I've seen with quite a few firms, just as a a broad indication. They wouldn't have the same level of knowledge, for example, I don't think, on the detail of the SFT or the EMIR reporting that they probably have around portfolio movements and performance and that kind of stuff. And I guess
it is starting to improve.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and they certainly have the capability and the skills and expertise to oversee in detail very well. I think it's a matter of putting that focus and attention now onto their EMIR and SFTO reporting.
I think so. We're starting to see that as well, an awful lot more from the Mancos. And I think the CBI confirming and reaffirming their message yesterday will only help drive that home. But more and more of them are getting on top of it now and putting that framework in place. So it's getting there.
Yeah, I think those regulations have been around for a little while now, and you talked about continuous improvement. I guess day one, you're just kind of trying to make sure you're doing some form of reporting, but what might have been market practice or accepted in the market day one is moved on at this stage. It's been around long enough that I think it's reasonable from the regulator's perspective to expect the data quality to be improving and the levels of oversight to be more granular and intrusive if they need to be than what it might have been earlier on in these regimes. So I guess it's just a natural evolution that the expectations are higher and the standards got to match.
I think so. And the fact that the CBI are using this data for their own internal policies and to drive policy will just heighten the expectations on their side in terms of that quality. But it is getting there. There's a lot more firms are engaging now and making sure that they do have those frameworks in place and that the correct governance is in place. And I think even talking to some clients and prospects, the boards are getting more involved to make sure that this is being captured and it is being looked at the way it should be.
Yeah, and I guess one of the positives then, you mentioned there in terms of policy making, I remember from my days, when you are crafting something and you're trying to assess where to set the rule, where to set the benchmark, it can be difficult to do, at a desk writing a policy paper without good quality information on impact. And so to the extent that this data can be used then to say, well, if we set the bar here, this is what the impact is going to be. And if we set it a bit higher, it'll be this, or lower, it'll be this. And to try and be a little bit more scientific and a bit more objective in understanding impact, then you can hopefully engage in better rulemaking and get your rules closer to where they ought to be to achieve what you want to achieve without maybe overburdening firms with costs that are disproportionate to what you're going to achieve with your rules. So if more data and better quality helps with policy making and rule making, I think it's a great thing.
Definitely agreed. And if the CBI are using all of that, it's only just going to be more of a positive. And I think if firms start using their own data similarly, it'll just be a net positive across the industry.
So I guess to conclude and wrap up, I think, clearly messaging from the central bank is we need improved data quality and improved oversight. They issued a letter on this in 2019. We had the central bank on that webinar yesterday delivering a very similar message. So maybe time to really take notice and really make efforts to improve the quality on both of those fronts.
I think so, yeah. There's going to be a lot more focus from the CBI. And once you have that oversight framework in place, you're going to be in good place and good position to respond to any queries from the CBI. You're going to be on top of it. And once the CBI see that, they're going to be happy with the effort that is being made to improve that quality. But yeah, from the 2019 letter, there isn't anything new there. It's just a refocus from the CBI, and I do expect to see more engagement from them going forward. So
yeah, my guess would be, the typical pattern would be probably, dear CEO letter followed by some sort of thematic review, followed by another industry engagement. So it would be good if you're a firm to try and ensure when that thematic review comes, if it comes, that you're able to answer the questions and you're in a good place and you don't find you're an outlier or that the market has moved and you haven't managed to keep up. Thank you very much for your time, Ciaran. I appreciate it.
Thanks for that, Danny.
The Aquest Podcast, Funds Industry Conversation.